Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Parts Talk. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate each and every one of you. Now today we're going to be reacting to a video from the John Anderson podcast, and it's entitled Thomas Sowell's Greatest Insight. And this will be given by his guest, Konstanin Kisin. Now Kisin is a Russian-British satirist, podcaster, author, and political social commentator. He's a regular on British and American television and various radio shows including Question Time, Good Morning Britain, BBC Breakfast, Daily Politics, among so many others. In this video, he touches on several key important talking points regarding the automotive car manufacturing sector and its impact on climate change. We're going to be doing a bit by bit reaction and point out five key factors in which he tried to emphasize on. It's only about 5 minutes, but it's very important because this is our space.
The single line that has made the greatest impact to my understanding of the world is from Thomas Sowell, who to me is one of the greatest modern thinkers. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. You're not going to solve climate change. You're not going to solve anything. You can make adjustments, and you know this much better than I do from being in government. Every policy has a trade-off, and very often, not ever, I think always actually, the reason that issues become difficult and controversial is precisely because the trade-offs are as bad as the solution quite often. And you have to pick very carefully how exactly you calibrate your solution to avoid causing a lot more damage.
And then politicians tend to do this, and that is why I've been at them ever since they dabbled into the complexity of doing this trade-off in terms of pushing EV on us. It is coming, but not the way they have emphasized. So trade-off and complexity, as he mentioned. So there is no absolute solutions to complex issues like climate change. Every policy decision in the automotive industry has trade-offs, and it is crucial to carefully calibrate solutions to avoid unintended consequences based on what you're seeing right now.
And you're trying to prevent. And we've completely lost the ability to see that nuance. Everything now is seen as, we have this conversation in this country all the time. If Labour are in, the reason the NHS is broken is because Labour's broken it. If the Conservatives are in, it's because the Tory cuts or whatever. No one seems to understand that all of these problems are eternal. They're going to go on forever. They're not solvable. No one's going to solve the NHS. No one's going to solve climate change. No one's going to solve anything. What we can do is tinker at the edges and improve certain aspects of it at the cost of others.
At the cost of taxpayers. That's what it boils down to. So he's just lamenting the lack of nuance in public discourse surrounding automotive and environmental issues. It is important to recognize that problems like climate change and the healthcare cannot be entirely solved, but can only be improved upon by tinkering at the edges. Critical thinking and analysis it is what's needed. However, the empirical data is there, but no one tends to utilize it.
At the cost of others. This was exactly, and you and I talked about this last time, what happened over COVID. People forgot that safety has trade-offs, that freedom has trade-offs. This is what no one wants to say. No one wants to say, yes, freedom of speech has the consequence that some guy is going to be insulting to someone else online and someone might get upset. But that is the price we're willing to pay because we want to live in a free society.
And it's always the conservatives versus the liberals, the Democrats versus the Republicans. And it happens everywhere, particularly here in the West, balancing safety and freedom. So the trade-offs between safety and freedom, using the example of the lockdown measures during the COVID-19 pandemic, similar trade-offs exist in the automotive industry, such as the balancing the emissions and regulations with personal mobility choices. Right now, we have the choice to purchase whether an EV or a combustion internal engine. However, come 2035, that choice will be diminished as EV will be taking over the space.
Yes, not locking down the country we don't know, may have caused more people to die, but locking down the country also caused more people to die. So which one of those do we want? How do we calibrate that policy? We've completely lost the ability to have those conversations, which is why I think it's really important that we try to bring that idea back. There are no solutions. There just aren't. You know this. Am I wrong about this, John?
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And the other great problem, though, is that a good government reflecting a good society recognises not just that there's no absolute answer to anything, but that you actually have to be able to manage many difficult issues at any given time. You and I have to do that in our own personal lives, and so do governments. And so what we're reducing politics to is sort of a series of one-trick pony shows where there's a crisis here and that's the only thing we'll talk about.
Yeah, totalitarianism, that's what it boils down to, because society has lost the ability to have open conversations about trade-offs and difficult issues. Now, it is crucial to engage in thoughtful discussions about the environmental impact of cars, weighing different perspectives and considering the long-term consequences, and that we did not have.
There are trade-offs. We're ignoring a whole lot of other problems, which will swamp that one if we don't pay them attention as well.
That's right.
And I think that's a great tragedy. But you talk about how we communicate. After that, as I understand it, you got a lot of opportunity to communicate. My guess is it was overwhelmingly on conservative shows because others don't want to engage. Did that prove to be a bit of a problem?
Well, look, it is what it is. I'm kind of used to it now. I'd like to break out of it because I feel like what I'm saying isn't, as you know, I'm not conservative. I certainly have some conservative views. I have some not conservative views. That it's frustrating to me because I try to just express my opinion, but it is what it is. The only left-wing publication that did interview me about it was a guy who came in here and then lied about me repeatedly to the point that they had to take whole chunks out of his article out afterwards. That was the only left-winger that ever... Well, I don't even know he's left-wing. He writes for a left-wing publication. And everybody else was somewhere in the center or right-leaning. And that's because they're afraid. It's because they're afraid of what will happen if they, quote-unquote, platform someone who said the things that I said. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's what it is.
Sadly, media bias and fear is that the media bias and reluctance of certain outlets to engage in conversations that challenge mainstream narratives. Now, this inhibits the comprehensive understanding of complex issues and hinders progress in finding balanced solutions. Now, political decisions have a significant impact on the automotive industry as they shape regulations, incentives, and policies that directly affect manufacturing, sales, and consumer behavior. Tax on automobiles is right up there with sin tax, which is alcohol and tobacco, because that's also one of the feeding tree for government taxes. A lot of revenues to come into the coffers of the government, but when it goes back out, you definitely can't see exactly where it's going. But in Canada here, with over 35 million vehicles running on the road, it may seem a small number, but North America is but North America as it stands is one of the largest markets in the automotive industry. Government regulations on emission standards, fuel efficiency, and safety requirements influence the design and production of vehicles. So the political decisions related to trade policies, tariffs, and subsidies can affect the competitiveness of the domestic and international automotive markets. However, we're not having a dialogues on these things because the politicians are not keeping in dialogue with the automotive manufacturers. Additionally, government incentives and tax breaks for electric vehicles or alternate fuel sources can drive consumer demand and shape the direction of the automotive innovation. Political decisions also play a role in infrastructure development, such as charging stations for electric vehicles or investments in public transportation, which can impact the overall transportation landscape and consumer choices. Overall, political decisions have a direct influence on the business environment and direction of the automotive industry. A disrupted supply chain, high car prices, high interest rate, high inflation are all a result of political decisions made. And we have to live with that every single day. You want that dream car, you're going to have to work 10 times harder for it. But you're also going to have to work 10 times harder to keep it. Let me know your thoughts below. Remember to grab a copy of my ebook, The Parts Manager Guide. Please smash that like button on your way out. It will only take you 1.5 seconds to do so. Until next time.